Today, folks, the recession hasn't happened yet. But if you were caught up in that narrative, you missed the dip buying opportunity that I took advantage of. So many of you in my chat group took advantage of. And we're going to talk about the stocks that I did take advantage of, take a look at the portfolio. But before we do, I wanted to share some just anecdotal fun stuff with you guys because we talked about the office setup. I kind of teased it a bit, but never showed you guys. And now that I've been here for a year, without further ado, I'd love to share it with you. And if you're on a path to financial independence to damn well one day retire early, go hit that subscribe button, join me, and hit that like while you're down there. Because the thing I'm most proud about with this office is as I ramble uncontrollably, you'll notice that the audio gets a lot smoother, a lot silkier in this room because I spent a little bit too much money on these sound dampening panels. And these things were probably the best purchase because you'll learn that it doesn't matter how good of a mic you have. It's hard to get rid of echo without a lot of editing. We got a little bit of, LED mood lighting. Who doesn't have that these days? My collectibles, as mentioned, some gold, some silver, nothing crazy stuff. I was gifted. My family's given me stuff to the fiance. Nothing crazy. I don't put a lot of money into that. As you guys know, I am a more stock-oriented investor than I am a physical commodity investor. But what I want to share with you is kind of the cool little collectibles. And I have this, I'm going to say I love Halloween a lot. It's like one of my favorite time of years. So I got my desk set up to this window, got a pretty nice view from the condo here. But what's really cool is, we got our LED lighting, we got our MacBook Pro here, another laptop that I operate off of for other things. It's a nice little setup, but I really like my little collectibles. I want to just kind of take a quick look at these. Now, I feel like this is only going to relate to the very few because most people probably don't want this stuff on their desk, like my really cool skull here with the mushrooms growing out of it. I kind of relate that back to MindMed. And if you've ever watched, not The Walking Dead, but whatever that other zombie movie is, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about there. We got my Juggernog mini fridge. If you guys ever played Zombies, this is a really expensive collector's item, and if I just open it, you can hear a really cool, ooh, how cool is that, right? And then finally on the other side, I got Chucky kind of just overwatching everything that's going on here. And I do like my Chucky doll as well. I love Halloween. It kind of follows me everywhere. But let's just take a look and get into the stock, shall we? Now, what I had open on my MacBook here was my payment schedule within my TFSA, where we're getting over 1,400 CAD from VDY, and I'm getting about 800 US between VOO and XLU. And XLU has been probably my most controversial buy, I guess, because some of you were always upset when I sell or I move stock. But VNQ was a very small position. As you know, I sold the Vanguard US real estate ETF in favor of XLU because firstly, I think the demand for utilities is going to get exceptionally, it's going to build exceptionally here. I mean, the grid needs to go through a huge upgrade, and utilities generally are just cheap. They've rallied back quite a little bit, but I still think we're getting some favorable values off them. And I just like it from a diversity standpoint a little bit more, considering some of the real estate exposure I already have. Now, it was kind of just a flip-flopped decision. I'm not perfect here, but some of the things I did do very well was selling Tesla at the recent tops. And we'll talk about Tesla when I might consider buying it back toward the end of this video. But I sold Tesla, took some wicked awesome gains, like $10,000 plus. I think we had like over 8,000 US in gains. So the Canadian conversion was over 10 grand. We bought some more VOO. A lot of that went into VDY. And as of recently, we've been buying XLU. So we've been able to scale this account to now up to just under $100,000. And thanks to the recovery today, this portfolio has not been updated as a whole. Unfortunately, iCloud only updates once a day because with the recent rally in all these stocks, we are well back over 300K. And if anything, I've pressured back beyond all-time highs thanks to the recent contributions I made just from working and doing my regular buys every other week on paychecks and stuff like that. And I hope you've been doing the same, not getting caught up in the noise and the debilitating, endless squirrel without a nut, just trying to figure out what's going on to get you to click like the financial clowns that we are, because that's how we make money, is through your clicks, not by your portfolio gains or losses here. And I find myself being a much more rigid, boring investor at the scale of my portfolio these days, because as many of you know, I'm not chasing gains like I used to, but we still have some individual stocks. They're not listed here because some of them are small caps, as mentioned, like Aduro Clean Technologies. I got some private placements and some other investments, but these are the bulk of the bigger ones, and they're boring, right? Like I'm a grandpa-like investor here. I'm not looking to chase absurd gains like I used to. I just want reliable returns, because with a 300K portfolio, heck, even if I make a 10% return on average here, we're talking about, 30,000 a year, and it's only growing because, again, I'm still working and contributing, right? So I want to talk about the stocks in and of themselves on an individual basis here, because when you kind of narrow down to what's been performing for my account, considering I sold Tesla at the recent highs, which is kind of rallied to 213, we sold that at around in the 240s, I believe. But to put that in VDY, that is now actually pressuring up, and I'm getting really great returns on it. Congrats to anybody that bought the dips on VDY this year, because if you bought it right at the beginning of the year, you're at 7.5% returns. On top of that, it's offered over a 4% dividend, so you are actually excelling market average returns this year. But keep in mind, this is more of a recovery play because it is still trading down from the all-time highs, but has been very great buying opportunity for income-oriented investors, especially over the last year, primarily driven by stocks like Enbridge that recently popped up. You got C&Q, the energy sector, performing exceptionally well. Even Manulife and the insurers out there, though this could be cyclical in nature because the insurers have so much capital on hand when they can put it into money market funds and high interest savings and all that stuff. Their returns became very exceptional this year. So yeah, Manulife luckily in VDY. Royal Bank, we have the earnings coming out for big banks here very, very shortly. So that's very exciting to see if these things can keep up their performance, because this year Royal Bank TD has been obviously the lackluster of the two in the second biggest position in VDY. So this one's been holding down. But now that we're starting to see a bit of a recovery and a nice bounce off the recent sell-off, again, these companies I still think are trading at favorable discounts, which is why I like buying VDY. They're boring returns, but when you buy these dips, they start becoming very exceptional. Now, my biggest regret this week is I knew it when I saw it, and I just didn't do it. And that's when I saw Nvidia jump down to about $100. I literally looked at it at $100 a share just within this last week here, literally at the beginning of the week. And when it jumped up the first initial bump, I didn't end up buying it. And I'm like, man, I could just throw an easy 5-10 grand in here and just swing trade it into earnings. And congrats to anybody that did actually buy the dip on this, because it was obvious. I think the most obvious buy because of the expectations this has going into earnings. And yeah, anyone that bought it, if you held through, you probably made a 15 to 20% return in less than a week. And my biggest regret for the week. But again, Nvidia is not a stock that I'm comfortable holding outside of my indexes. It is one of the largest positions in my portfolio just because of the insane amount of money I have in the S&P 500. I'm okay with that. But again, I wish I was just a little bit more itchy on my finger there, because could have just squeezed out an extra probably a grand or two of returns in a week. But Tesla, on the other hand, this is one that I've been having a love-hate relationship with because I don't think it's like they always kind of have a magic card. Like they pull a rabbit out of a hat all the time because auto is lagging so hard. But now that their energy business is kind of making up for some of the loss in returns and actually keeping the revenues afloat, that could become a substantial business for them, let alone robotics and self-driving, which, isn't ready yet. And it keeps getting delayed. But this has always been a hype stock, and I really wanted to buy it again. If I was hoping I could get it back down at the levels that I originally bought it. If this thing was getting back into the 180s, I was going to buy it back. I thought it was going to get there very soon, and it didn't even touch it. It barely touched it, and it's been rallying back. Like I said, I am such a conservative investor for the most part these days that I need to be buying it within a favorable, reason for myself. And it's personal finance, right? Like you have to figure out what's best for you. And there's no way I was going to be buying this at 260, which is why I was selling it up here. And I have a hard time buying it anywhere in the 200s because the story just hasn't changed that much. And it's just trading at a wicked high multiple for the lack of growth that it is experiencing, though I'm expecting that to change at some point in the future. It's just for now, I'm hoping with lackluster earnings that just aren't that exhilarating with no growth behind it, that we can claw our way back down a little bit more. Because I told you guys my initial thesis on the stock was that if I buy it in the 180s, I was presuming it was going to drop down to maybe the 120s, 140s. That never happened, right? So that's why my thesis changed and I took profit. But, like I said, that could also be a detriment if the stock continues to excel and then flies back these highs that we had here, and I never bought the shares back. But again, these are very small. They're usually unimpactful trades for the most part in the grand scheme of my portfolio, when I'm only investing, gambling. And again, I call that gambling with about 10% or less of my portfolio at any given time, let alone the combined values of mine and my fiance's portfolio. But that's kind of where we sit. And I'm very excited and hope you guys have been buying, because I don't know how much I invested this week. I probably transferred another $5 grand from my corporate account put the tax money aside. I got a paycheck last week that I invested within the last couple days here as well. And it's nice seeing the benefit of just consistently buying, playing into my favor. As I told you guys, when everyone's fearful, it's time to be greedy, baby. But I'd love to know what you think in that comment section below.